This is Believe Differently. Thank you so much for tuning in to this broadcast. I'm very excited about this today because I just believe that every one of us needs reality. I think, that's a powerful word. And I want to talk about a biblical worldview again. And in the Bible, in the scriptures, the word truth means ultimate reality. Jesus said, I am the way, the ultimate reality, and the giver of life. There's no way to God or outside of God. Jesus is the explanation of God. It is God come into the world to explain his nature, his work, his power. Jesus is clarity. When you see Jesus and you hear his words, the people that heard him said, never a man ever spoke like this. And so this is Believe Differently. And I want to just introduce you to some scriptural truths that are not just simple sermons. And yes, the word God, when believed, will make your life better. But I believe we all need foundations. We need some place to start thinking about who we are, what life is about, and where we're going. We need foundations. Whether you're building a family, a marriage, a business, a culture, we all need reality. That's just the way it is. We all need a foundation. We need something to believe in. And one of the things that the Bible is good at is teaching us and showing us what reality is. So we have something to believe on, something to build on. And I really believe that's a very, very important idea to grasp in our lives. When we talk about reality, we're really asking, what is real? What is good? What is evil? What's wrong? What's right? These are things that so affect our world. I watched the tragedy of Charlie Kirk unfold, and the world is completely divided. We cannot be sorrowful over the tragic death of a man. We're so ideologically driven. We that are so have our own philosophy of life that we can't mourn with a family that lost a husband and a father and someone who had his own political points of view and religious points of view. We need a foundation. He believed he had a foundation in his life, and we have to ask ourselves, what is real? We saw the ramifications of somebody who felt it was real to take another life because they believed something differently. All around us, we have religious, political ideals, isms, philosophies that literally decide the fate of the kind of people that we're going to be. Are we going to kill people? Are we going to allow people to starve? Or are we going to say some people are less valuable than other people? How are we going to treat people? How does that affect our lives? This man at 31 years old, an enormous amount of his life was cut short. We made a decision on the reality that we believe, how we're going to act. And I really believe, that in the Garden of Eden was a challenge to humanity to understand the temptation, the test of good and evil. And whether we're going to walk in dominion, which is the word that God uses for choosing something good that will rule the world over something evil that will rule the world. What is reality? What is your reality? And I think we need to debate that. And I had a pretty vast library, I guess, when I was younger. And I read so many books on philosophy, Nietzsche and Descartes, and I studied all the religions of the world. And I thought so many of them were brilliant and they had a reality of a spiritual realm, but the moral core to me was just rotten. There was, in a sense, no hero, something perfect, something so wonderful, so truthful, so faithful, so perfect in character and nature to look up to. They were just grand ideas, but the men themselves failed. When we see Jesus Christ, we see who God is, and there's no failure there. There's just perfection. And the God of the Bible is about perfection. And when I look at the scriptures, I see perfection in God. And we're going to unpack some things, some hard things, some grasps that we need to have on reality, because I don't think at times we have a grasp of reality. We're willing to do some pretty terrible things because we have a reality that's not of God. And I believe knowing God is the ultimate reality. What is real? Science points to atoms and galaxies and Big Bang, and life came from non-life. We're the product of evolution, which every brutal regime has ever come from the foundation that we are the survival of the fittest, that each person has less value than the next. It's couched in compassion for the worker, for the soul next to us, for the person, but really it's not about that. We don't know who we are. We don't have an identity. Is it in God? Is it in a higher power? Is it in a greater morality that we aspire to? These are very important questions. Look around you. There's suffering and starvation and war and pornography and child trafficking. And these are all realities, and they come from a moral point of view. So we have to build our lives on foundation. And somewhere along the line, we just kind of think that a life without God might be more satisfying than a life with God, because we're withholding something from ourselves. In Eden, we hear that temptation of an enemy who's saying God is withholding something from you, a pleasure, a power, a possession. It's at the very heart of the God of the Bible that he is not withholding anything but evil. God doesn't withhold anything. No good thing will I withhold from those who walk uprightly before me. So I think if we can get a hold of that concept that God doesn't withhold anything from us, he withholds nothing but evil. And if we get that, I think we can understand the foundation that the God of the Bible is laying. What created everything? Where did we come from? Who are we supposed to be like? And where are we going? And like I said, science points to atoms and galaxies. Philosophy speaks of ideas and ideals, but human nature just continues to fail. And some of those ideas are so poor. Some of the religious concepts that we hold dear, mistreat women, are warlike, have no humility. They don't have any compassion. They're really political organization couched in religious dominance. Religion is not to dominate. It is to grow, to be better people. It is to magnify love and truth, what is right and good. And so, when we look around us, there's these ideologies that create wars and disparities between people. But in the flood of voices, who defines reality? God withholds nothing from us but evil. And I think until we're willing to deal in our own life with things that are not wrong and right, we're going to pursue lots of things that are going to hurt how we look at ourselves and how we look at others and how we look at life. Reality has serious consequences. What's the foundation that you're building your life on? I'd like to read something to you. I believe the Bible answers with a thunderous beginning. A thunderous beginning. This is not an accident. You are not an accident. I don't care what you believe, a static universe, the Big Bang. There was a cause that banged the Big Bang. There was something that caused the static universe. I was watching Tyson LaGrasse. I forgot he's a very brilliant man. And he talked about the creation in terms of if you had 200 people and if you flip the coin and 50% of those people had to sit down, it would be 100 people, because when you flip a coin, it's 50-50. And he's trying to tell us that so great is the plan of chance over a God that if you just think about it, the chance created everything. Disorder made order. And so he goes on to say, and then you flip it again, and now it's down to 50 people, then it's down to 25 people. And then finally it gets to 2 people. And finally there's one person. There'll be one perfect earth with the sun in the right place and the stars in the right place and the gravity in the right place and the laws in the right place and seed time and harvest and the oceans on their boundaries and water but who gave him the coin? Who created the coin? Who flips the coin? Who determines what the coin is going to produce? Who made the people? It's such an unserious argument for such a brilliant man. Chance doesn't create anything. And in that foundation, you as a human being have absolutely no value. And the Bible is determined to give you value because there is a moral God and governor of the universe. Where are you going to put your foundation? Reality begins with God. He does not emerge from reality. He creates it. God is not emerging from reality. God is not something that we discover. He's there. He's speaking. He's creating a world. He's struck this stuff. This believe differently really wants to take you down some deep paths. We can't, I came to church because I'm on drugs, and I came to church because my marriage is not working, and I came to church because, listen, God wants to heal all the pain and suffering and brokenness in your life. He did for me, and he'll do it for you. But man, we have a lot greater things that we need, because even after God heals everything in our life, without a foundation, we are still broken, and we're just going to repeat it. We need a foundation. Without a foundation, reality splinters into competing versions. God creates reality. He is the uncaused cause, the eternal I am. He is life. The Bible said about Jesus, in him was life, and the life was the light of men. The reality, the light that comes from God's mind and heart, the reality of who God is, who we are, what the creation is about, where we're going, what's our identity. It all comes from God, the great I am, the eternal life without beginning or end. And yeah, we can make philosophical claims. Who made God? There's just some things that are outside of time and space, which are all created. It's the uncreated God. And everything has a moral value to it. You cannot say it doesn't. Because if you look at the world, all the pain and suffering in the world is because we take the world and we use it as we see fit. And sometimes it creates pain, and sometimes it creates suffering, and sometimes it creates harm. No, we need a moral governor. We need a foundation of what good and evil is. We need it. God is the first cause, the source, the creator of every sun, every star, every planet, everything put in its place, and every soul. You are a soul. You're so much more than your body. You are a soul. You think, you create, you love, you plan. You look for purpose even if you don't believe you have it. You look for order even if you don't believe in order. There's just some things that are so innate that prove that the foundation of life, the reality of life, is that there is a God and that nothing is truly meaningless. What we don't like is being accountable to this moral governor who's made us accountable to the world that we've created that we now blame him for. Reality begins with God. Without him, creation would have no purpose. I love it. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth was formless and void. And of course, everybody's arguing over. I think that the earth and the planets and the stars and the universes were there for eons. But one day, in God's timing and plan, Genesis 1 is God created everything. Genesis 2 is God ordering a specific place we call earth for life. That's a foundation. A life. Not just animal life and plant life, but a special creation. And we're going to be talking about that right now. I'm just trying to unpack some things. I'm trying to get you to believe differently. Don't be locked in. Don't be persuaded by ideologies. We have to think for ourselves. So, there'd be no purpose. There'd be no order. There would be no beauty. There'd be no fruitfulness. There'd be no meaning. There'd be no joy. We wouldn't understand what it means to have peace. Life springs from his will. Come on. He chose it. He chose to create the world. He chose to create life in its many forms. He chose to separate a space in creation for you to live, a stage on which we all play out our lives, a home on which a planet that we call home, in which we all live out our family life. Life springs from his will, sustained by his power. The earth didn't collapse in on itself. The ocean is still doing its thing. The seed time and harvest is still doing its thing. There's so many laws and different things. It's sustained by his power. The universe is not sustaining itself. God said it's going to be there because I said light be, and earth, oceans, you have boundaries. And I want seed to produce after its kind. And I want the sun to come out. And I want the moon to be there for at night. No. It's there because God commanded it to be there. This foundation not only gives you hope, it gives you identity, it gives you meaning. Come on, we got to believe that. We got to get into the deeper stuff. Religion is so much more than that's bad and that's right. No, it's so much more than that. It's so much more than trying to be a good person without a foundation. You just can't be. There's no reason to be a good person. Not in this world. You got to get what you can get. Life is short. Apostle Paul said, eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow you die. These are great and powerful truths that we need to just grasp. We look not to things that are seen. 2 Corinthians 4:8 says, we look not to things that are seen, but to things that are unseen. Wait a minute, what? This creation was created by an unseen God, but it's a physical universe. That's the place where we live. As human beings, we were created human. We were created as part of the material universe, but we are inhabited by a spirit. So we can live on the earth, but commune with God. Why is that so hard for us to understand? Why does it seem so contrary to science? I mean, most of the early scientists and even many scientists today say the God who made us, there's just so much order in the universe. It has to be so much more than what we think. We look at things we look not to things that are seen, but to things that are unseen. For the things that are seen are transient, but the things that are unseen are eternal. There's an eternity to you. Your spirit is eternity. Your body's not in this temporary stage of development. Your body is not eternal, but it will be. Because of the foundation of God's creation is that when he made you for eternity. He made you forever. Once that cell divides and that potential life begins in the womb, eternity exists. You existed. You won the lottery. The minute that cell divides, there's a flash of light that's showing more and more. There's some kind of flash of light. The minute that cell divides, potential, you're eternal. You won the lottery if you're eternal. You never die. You never cease to exist. You just go to a different plane of existence in God's perfect will or out of God's perfect will. We create a heaven or a hell for ourselves. We choose. Don't blame God for heaven or hell. We choose. We're making earth as much of a hell as we can, except for some people who know that reality has a moral center, has a moral core. So, but the things that are seen are eternal. The heavens declare the glory of God. I was watching how there's another space race to the moon to create bases and do mining, and that's what China's involved in. And I, now I'm seeing there's going to be a fight over the Mariana Trench because there's thousands of years of rare earth underneath there. It's just terrible that instead of working together as God created us to be, we're in competition. We're against one another. Instead of making sure the whole world has food, we're making sure the whole world has weapons. Instead of making sure there's peace and giving each man his own plot of land to freely do what he wants, we want to take that land from somebody and tell them, you live our way. In the end, we have to live God's way. And the supreme law of God is love. Do unto others as you would want others to do unto you. Without that supreme law living in you, you have no foundation. The foundation is any crazy idea, imagination, philosophy, ideology, thought that comes across your mind. And without God, most of those thoughts are fallen and depraved and confused and corrupted. God is the ultimate person who can give us wisdom and knowledge of the right way to live and who we really are. Think differently, believe differently. We're so locked into our little man-made worlds that we shut God out, and we're slowly beginning to destroy our planet. And I think it's going to come a lot more before global warming. We're just going to kill each other unless we get back to that moral center, that foundation that the God of the Bible made us to emulate, his moral nature, or else. It's your or else. It's not God's or else. God is trying to keep the world going. Even at times when it seemed that God acted violently, it was to preserve life. I mean, we had to go to war against Nazi Germany or all life would have been extinguished, except for that one particular ideology. We have prisons because evil is real, and we have to separate evil from the good, or the good will just suffer, be tormented, abused, used by the wicked. There's a heaven and a hell because the good will be tormented, abused, and used and abused by the wicked. So the heavens declare, the skies proclaim the work of his hands. We just look around us. The earth itself speaks for the things that, for they pour forth speech night after night. They reveal knowledge. They have no speech. They use words. They reveal knowledge. They have no speech, but yet they speak. They use no words. No sound is heard from them. But you just look at that and you say, wow, this creation, especially earth, is very, very purposeful. Yeah, the universe is, we don't even have an imagination. So it's so hard. We can't even fathom all the plans and purposes of the universe. We can't get to the bottom of all the laws and quarks and atoms and dark matter and everything else, but we're definitely sure there's no God. We can't even fathom the natural universe. We're so arrogant, we're going to say there's no God. I mean, for all we know, God is just, his mind, his heart is so vast that the universe is just, the earth is just a stage for the rest of what may happen among the other planets that God orders them for purpose. No, we can't think that big. We don't think of a God that big. We got a small God, a religious God who's against this people and he's for this people. It has nothing to do with that. The only thing God's against is evil. Every boundary is against evil. That's the only thing that God's against. The heavens declare the glory of God. The skies proclaim the work of his hands. The work of his hands. Of course, it's a metaphor. I don't think God was rubbing the earth in a ball and spitting in one part is the ocean. And then got some, come on. Whatever God did, the Bible said he spoke into existence. I've studied so many religious books. It's just crazy. So many religions. I mean, this God was an enemy of the other God. And when he died, his tears caused the sea to fall. Oh my God. Oh my God. It's just, most of our religions are just superstition. Religion is really superstition. Science is mostly superstition. Oh yes, it has a lot of facts. Oh yeah, it has lots of proved points, but it's superstition because it just worships a natural materialistic creation, not knowing that the real point of creation is to look beyond ourselves. It's just superstition. Just like ancient man, he worshipped thunderstorms and lightning strikes and floods and everything as an angry God. We worship the creation thinking that's all there is, and it's the new God. It's the center of creation. And yet we're a dot in the middle of, we're a speck of dust in the middle of a huge universe, but yet we think, we reason, we love, we create cities and technology. Come on, get a hold of ourselves. Believe differently. Listen to this. And then God says, after I create this massive universe, Yet their voice goes out into the earth, their words to the ends of the world. In the heavens, God has pitched a tent for the sun. Another metaphor that the sun comes out, the sun goes in. The law of the Lord. Here we go. Here we Lord. We cannot just look at a physical universe. So that's it. No, right away, there's a moral law. The law of the Lord is perfect, refreshing the soul. Without God, we are dry, barren, sad, confused, meaningless, nihilistic. It goes on and on. I am so happy that God found me, that God opened his heart to me. The precepts of the Lord are right. That means good and evil is understood and they're right. They're trustworthy. They're going to make your life better, or without them, it's going to make your life hell. And make wise to simple. The stupidest person could say, this is wrong, this is right, and have order and peace and joy, a foundation for their life. The precepts of the Lord are right, giving joy to the heart. The commands of the Lord are radiant, giving light to the eyes. We're no longer blind as to what's wrong and right and good and evil and our purpose. The fear of the Lord is pure, enduring forever. You don't want to cross God because he's not going to allow hell and pain and suffering and cruelty and misery be the product of his creation. We're going to fear God. One day he's going to put an end to it. The decrees of the Lord are firm, and all of them are good, righteous. They are more precious than gold, more than pure gold. They are sweeter than the honey from the honeycomb. By them your servant is warned. Keeping them, there is great reward. But who can discern his own errors? Unless God tells you what's wrong, you won't even discern your own errors. You think everything you do is good no matter how evil it is. Forgive my hidden faults. Show me, God. Keep your servant from willful sins. May they not rule over me. Then I will be blameless, innocent of a great transgression. Psalm 19. Father, help us to see you, to see your foundations, your plans, your purposes, the moral code of your creation that keeps us, that helps us to love ourselves, to love one another, to give value to each other, to begin to live, to help and bless one another, not take, not be greedy, not be selfish, not be destructive. And God, we ask you to open our eyes and help us to believe differently. This is Sal. Thank you for tuning in. We'll talk to you soon.